Well, hey, everybody. I don't know if I did that as good as Elliot and or Nick, but they both kind of start off every podcast with what seems to be that type of phrase, which I like, Nick. I like. I'm not downplaying it. I'm not making fun of it. I just wanted to try to emulate the Nick Kirby, and I felt like it felt a little bit of flatness to it there. So that's here nor there. We are back on a Wednesday night. And it's good to see you, Nick. I kind of miss you every so often. Not all the time, to be honest, but every so often.
You haven't had enough. I mean, I feel like 6-7 times a week's probably pushing it, but once or twice, I feel like we need that in our lives.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt that during the season, there's certainly times where you're like, you're not that you're going through the motions, but you're kind of like, okay. Reds are winning 8-2. Let's just so happen to say every so often though they lose 8-2, and you're thinking to yourself, man, what in the hell are we going to talk about tonight? And sure enough, we find something that we get fired up about. And good to see the usual suspects in the chat. Nice to see you, everybody. Lovely to get the group back together. I have been working. I don't want to call it day and night, but I have been working on the Chatterbox Reds site. We're going to launch that hopefully right around Black Friday. Got some news in regards to what that looks like. And one thing really fast, Nick, before we get into all this fun stuff that is the off season, is I just got an email, and we have Reds Fest tickets through the season ticket packages we purchased. I got to figure out how to give those away. So keep on the lookout for that as well. Maybe that'll be next Wednesday's show. If we have a show Wednesday, I don't know. I just made that up.
I probably won't do Wednesday next week because that's day before Thanksgiving.
Well, I mean, hey,
I don't know.
True. I mean, real men that are committed to the craft, they would do it on Thanksgiving if they had to, right, Nick?
Hell, yeah, it's just 2:30 in the afternoon, fired up.
I mean, I'm sure that your wife may be watching. My wife, maybe not. I'm not sure, but it would be kind of funny if I went up there to bed after the show and be like, yeah, we got to talking. There's some big Reds news that we plan to hit on Thanksgiving morning. We're going to do a show right around 1 o'clock. And I'd love to just see the reaction that I get. Maybe I wouldn't, but it might be a funny little joke.
I think my wife would only be mad if I did it in the morning. The parade is the most.
Oh, you're a parade guy.
I enjoy the parade. My wife and she wants the kids to be so into the parade. She loves the parade. So
it's your household. I always turn on the parade, and I got to be honest, Nick, I think to myself, how is this so popular? I mean, who is watching this? I mean, and there's just like they got these poor announcers in the freezing cold telling you what balloons are coming up next. I'm like, golly day, I don't understand. But now I understand.
The more you know.
It's the Kirbys keeping Macy's in business. Good to know. All right, we could start off this whole entire show as a new show if you'd like to keep the podcast clean. I don't know how you'd like to do it, but I think that's relatively fair. You want to lead us in, or you want me to lead us in, Nick?
Well, let's update everyone where we're at with the off-season calendar. The big one this week is the non-tender deadline. We'll get to that. We did talk about that last week. Kind of feel like we've exhausted that, but we'll get to that since that is the news of the week. Of course, Reds Fest coming up December 1st and 2nd. And then the winter meetings, the 4th through the 6th in that draft lottery, Rule 5 draft. This, Trace, really kind of feels like the calm before the storm. We got past the World Series. We got like the Joey Votto news. We've, got some other news around baseball, some rumblings. But it feels like we're a week, 2 weeks away from things really starting to pick up.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no doubt that there's some big names on the market. We all know who those are, and I think that maybe that's going to be the proverbial kind of the dam bursting, perhaps, or the water breaking through the floodgates. So I'll be interested to see how that all goes, right? I know this sounds wild, not that we get into some crazy, rumor stuff or anything like that, but like, I actually have convinced myself that I might be happy if the Cubs were to get Ohtani, because I think that could ultimately end up being one of the worst decisions in regards to the amount of money that is spent on a player in the history, only because there's that much money being spent. I'm not saying Ohtani's a bust by any means. He's a great player, best baseball player of all time, blah, 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 blah. But when you spend that much money on one asset, that is, I don't care who you are, that is a crazy risk. And you've said it time and time again, Nick. I don't know how many times you said it, but the one thing that you say is that is truer than it's the truest thing maybe you've ever said, is that even though these big market franchises can miss on some guys, if they do miss on a guy like that, it evens the playing field immediately. You might as well consider them a smaller market type team because they're operating off the same type budget because they've wasted all their money somewhere else. So I guess maybe that's part of me and my brain trying to prepare for the idea of having the best baseball player maybe of all time going to the Chicago Cubs. But some of me, I guess, kind of relishes in the idea of that being a possibility.
I think it definitely could be a really bad long-term contract. I mean, I don't think there's any question it would really hurt the Reds over the next couple of years, which that would be the part that would really sting. It's one of those things where
maybe if he can't pitch, if he can't pitch, that's a big deal. That's all I'm saying. Like if he gets to the point where his arm becomes an issue, I mean, I know he's an unbelievable hitter, yes, but the reason you're paying somebody that much money is because you think they're going to be two different things.
Yeah, I still think even some of the numbers that I've seen, assuming he still hits at the level he hit last year, he's still going to be worth that in free agent dollar terms. Now, it's still going to be an exorbitant number, and he's getting paid that because of pitching. If he's hitting at that level, I don't think whatever they're paying him is going to handcuff a franchise like the Cubs in the short term. But in the long term, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of move that can that goes wrong. It in itself, one singular move sends you into a rebuild.
Yeah. No, you're right. Fair enough. All right. Listen, a couple things, Nick. I'm being serious when I say this. Partly because someone like myself could be educated from time to time, but we probably have a plethora of people and a good amount of people that listen to this show, watch this show. They might have picked up baseball just this past season. They might have picked it up after a long time. They might be, I don't want to call them casual is not the right word to use, but someone that really might not be invested into the offseason and what each thing means. When we get into the Rule 5, and not that you need to have like this long, elegant way of explaining every single thing, but when we get into like these things like the Rule 5 and the non-tender here in a minute, if you could shed a little bit of light just on the idea of what the Rule 5 just is in general, right? You have the Rule 5 draft, yes. Explain that and what this Rule 5 means and why these guys that are protected on it matter.
Yeah, so the basic quick summary is you don't want players to be able to be stashed in the minor leagues forever. And this is a way to where that doesn't happen as much. I mean, there's still going to be some manipulation, but it's a way to keep that. I believe it's 5 years. After 5 years, you have to be on a team's 40-man roster in order to be protected. So Rhys Hines, Christian Roa, and Jacob Hurtubise reached that number this year among a ton of other players, but they're the ones that reached that. Okay, so the Reds had to make a decision by yesterday at 6:00 if they wanted to put those guys on the 40-man roster or risk losing them. There'll be a Rule 5 draft at the MLB winter meetings, and basically anyone could pick up any player that didn't get protected that has reached that. I think it's 5-year threshold. Now, the caveat to this, Trace, is that the player has to stay on the major league roster all year. So you just can't be going and, picking up whoever you want. You take that player, you have to put them on your major league roster and stay all year. The last one I remember was Stuart Turner. He was a catcher for the Reds, and the dude, they kept him on the roster. You talk about 3 catchers. This guy literally never played. I think he played less than Kurt Casale, and the Reds at the end of the year dumped him. It was a really weird situation. You don't see it as much with position players. You see it a lot more with pitchers. That a team, it's a lot easier to hide a reliever than it is to and not to be negative, but relievers get hurt a lot, and that's also a way to keep them on your roster. Is being on the IL also counts as that. So, long story short, the Reds chose to protect Rhys Hines, Jacob Hurtubise, and Christian Roa. Quick nuggets on each of those. Rhys Hines, he was the most obvious choice here. He's the Reds, I believe, number 10 ranked prospect. Just turned 23. He's got insane power. If you watched Chatterbox Reds throughout the year, you might remember he went on this one crazy hot streak. He hit 7 home runs in 6 games. So he's definitely got that upside. Does strike out a lot, but did have some success cutting that down from 2022. He's got a great arm. Reports he's a pretty solid fielder. He's a guy that could make it to the big league club at some point next season. So he was the most obvious. He's just a really talented guy. I think he's probably at least going to get a chance at some point to be a platoon player for the Reds as a right-handed bat. Then Christian Roa, he was the Reds' 2020 second-round pick. He's got crazy strikeout numbers, striked out nearly 13 batters per 9 innings, but he walks a ton of guys. Maybe in some ways has that Brandon Williamson feel. I don't think he has that amount of upside, but he does strike out a lot of batters. He's a guy that a team that is maybe not competing, like maybe the Oakland A's would take a chance on, throw him in the bullpen. And so I think he was worth protecting. And then, of course, Jacob Hurtubise is the guy we heard about all year. This dude's just an absolute on-base machine. He's got speed, doesn't have a lot of power, but he's actually got, I think, a legitimate chance of making the opening day roster, depending on what the Reds do. Maybe that next TJ Friedel mold. So those were the 3 the Reds chose. The ones the Reds didn't of note, Jose Acuna and Bryce Bonnin. I think those are the only 2 that have any sort of chance of getting picked up by someone else. But I think it's probably in the Reds' view, it's a risk you're willing to take because, again, you have to keep those guys on your – all right, you're going to put those guys on your roster all year. We'll take our chances with that. So it seemed like this year there really wasn't as much controversy as some other year, or as many players like the year before, Elly De La Cruz and Noelvi Marte and Leon Richardson were added. So there wasn't like the huge names, but nonetheless, that's what the Reds decided to do. And I mean, it seemed pretty straightforward overall.
Back to Roa really quickly. One of the guys that was protected is, and this is where obviously my lack of knowledge and you and guys like Bryce will be much more well aware of this, is he fall back to like a Joe Boyle type to where you just have electric stuff and just can't quite figure it out. And maybe there's a chance where, you know, there's something there that just needs to get unlocked. Is that a relatively fair comparison, or you really wouldn't go down that path?
Yeah, he probably doesn't have the crazy like strikeout in the big league. He doesn't have like that 100-mile-an-hour fastball that Boyle has. He probably has a little bit better command. He's a guy that if you look through his game logs, you can find some starts that he made last year, especially towards the end of the year, that were pretty good. But he just had these other starts where he just couldn't find the strike zone. I did actually get to see him pitch with Dayton 2 years ago. He looked really, really good, and then he lost his command, and that's kind of what you would expect out of. Yeah. Is what we expected out of him so far. But he's a young guy. He's definitely a guy that's worth, I think keeping around. He gives you rotation depth. He might end up being a bullpen guy, but he's a second-round pick in 2020. So I think there probably would have been a team that would have given him taken a flyer on him if the Reds had him go unprotected.
All right, fair enough. Maybe the best thing about the offseason is rumors, Nick. I mean, we talked about this last week, the trade rumors. We both reminisced about back in the day when you didn't really have X.com. You didn't have all the ways to be able to get on the internet and find things in a glimpse of an eye. And now you go back in time and you think, man, what it would be like to go back to traderumors.com and just start reading all the craziness about what people have heard through executive, et cetera, et cetera. We still have some Reds rumors, not the craziest of ones yet, but they're starting to swirl. Anything that sticks out to you?
Well, the one that kind of came out of left field a little bit. John Heyman reported the Reds are interested in Jeimer Candelario, switch hitter, first base, third base. He was with the Nationals, got traded to the Cubs. He's a guy that's interesting. I know everyone's kind of expecting the Reds to look for an outfielder, not really expecting like the first base type. But when I saw that news, I was a little surprised that he kind of look at him a little bit more. He's definitely a player that there's no question would make the Reds offense better. And I wonder if the Reds are considering him because they're looking at the price of some of the outfielders like the Jorge Soler's, the Teoscar Hernandez, the Gurriel Juniors, and they're like, that price is just too much. We might be able to get this guy on a one year with an option, something a lot smaller, and might still have the same value overall to add to our offense. I was a little surprised by this. What about you?
I think it comes down to what are they going to prioritize, period. Are they willing to spend extra on an outfielder, or are they trying to save that money, if you want to call it that? And I know people hate using that term, but that's the term I'm going to use. Are they going to try to save that money and maybe splurge on a veteran starter that they trust? Until you get to the end of the road, which is probably spring training of next year, I don't know if you'll really fully know what their total plan is. You'd like to think that obviously if they go out and make a big splash in regards to signing one of those veteran arms, or they do go out and get a Jorge Soler, then you can say, okay, then this was obviously a priority. Until they make that move, it's hard for me to know what exactly is going up their sleeve, because I definitely think that you say whatever you want about Nick Krall. I think that he's relatively honest most of the time, but I think he's got some gamesmanship too. Like I really do. I think the guy's doesn't. I don't want to say he doesn't tell the truth on. I think he doesn't tell the truth to give himself the best edge he thinks that he can give himself. Now, whether or not other GMs or other people in the industry are buying what he's selling, I don't know, but I certainly am not at times. And it's just like they said that they, with all due respect, what was it, 2 weeks ago, he said that he valued India highly and that he wasn't going to move. And then a week later, it was, Jonathan India's he's available. Who wants him? I mean, I don't, and I'm not trying to make fun or laugh about it. It's just funny to me how these things go inside these meetings, the negotiation tactics at an all-time high. So I'm not reading too much into that until I actually see them sign somebody, I guess is what I'm taking from it.
Yeah. Well, then speaking of pitchers, the two first names that I think I've seen linked, I don't think I saw any other. Bob Nightingale. Of course, we do take some things Mr. Nightingale says with a grain of salt. He reported that the Reds are pursuing a veteran starting pitcher. Wow, really went on a limb there. He mentioned Michael Wacha or Wade Miley. It wasn't clear in his article, and this is real deep in the rumor season. It wasn't clear if this was just pure speculation on Nightingale's part, or if these names were actual names that he's heard the Reds in conversations. Both of these guys make sense. I think probably it's fair to say, Trace, neither one of those guys, if that's all the Reds do, are going to really make the fan base excited. It's hard to really know if that would be an okay move or not without seeing what the starting pitching market's going to look like. If the starting pitching market's insane and to get a Sonny Gray, you're going to have to pay not money, but years, just crazy. It might make more sense to go with one of these guys. But you really have to see where that market, I think, kind of settles. And until you start seeing the first team that goes out and does that, that's where we're going to kind of have to be kind of stuck in this limbo.
If you made me pick one of the two, I would go with Wacha. It's just wild that Wade Miley's still kicking it, man. I mean, if you'd have told me on the back half of the season in which Wade Miley was final season with the Reds was going to still be a prized free agent, or I guess that's a strong word, prized, but you get my point. Hopefully, I would have laughed out loud, quite frankly. I thought the guy was out of gas then, and clearly it was wrong. So congratulations to him. Wacha, he's going to be 32 next season, so it's not like he's fighting father time as well. We'll see what happens, Nick. Neither one of those kind of get me fired up, though. Do they get you fired up?
I mean, they make the Reds better. I mean,
maybe
the names don't sound. I mean, Wacha had a 3.22 ERA.
Wacha was good last year, but he's going to be 32. But yeah.
Wade Miley had a 3.14 ERA. I don't worry as much about the age as I do the years. I've said it before. I'd rather go out and sign a 38-year-old pitcher that I think could still be good in the next year to a 1-year deal than a 31-year-old, 32-year-old pitcher to like a 7-8-year deal. I don't have an issue with that. The Braves have kind of done that with like Charlie Morton. They keep re-signing him until his arm falls off. But they're signing him to short-term deals. So, it might completely blow up, but if it blows up, it's 1 year. It's not going to linger year after year after year, which is the thing that I'm most, cautious about with the Reds. The thing with Miley, that he was really good last year, but in 2018, he only made 16 starts. 2019 pitched a full season. 2020, he was hurt. That was a weird season, but he wasn't ready for the opening day rotation. 2021 with the Reds, he almost pitched a full season. And then last year, only made 8 starts. And then the year after, he made 23 starts. So, again, I don't have a problem with that if you're signing him on a discount because of those injuries. Sure, like take the player at a discount. But you can't be signing him as a guy that you're banking on because there's just not enough of a track record of recent, being able to stay healthy that would warrant that.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Kroll, and we're going to get to his comments here in just a second. I mean, he's made a statement that says he's looking for guys that are reliable inning eaters for the most part. I don't think that's verbatim what he said, but that's what he was getting after. I know that there's not that many Bronson and Arroyos just kind of floating around Major League Baseball right now, but in all seriousness, that's the type of arm that the Reds are hoping they can find, is a guy that can go out there and just eat up some innings, and he's not obviously going to be a frontline starter by any means, but at the same time, you give this staff a little bit of a break, and especially the bullpen, which I don't think that they're going to be completely satisfied with this offseason either. Nick Kroll has mentioned that. It ultimately comes down to what areas do we feel like the Reds would have a significant issue in if there were to have, let's say, a couple injuries. And the first thing that comes to mind for me probably would be, in my opinion, as crazy as it sounds, relievers, which I just maybe, but again, if you'd have told me last season that this bullpen was going to be unbelievable, I'd have laughed out loud as well. So I'm starting to buy into your theory that is the relievers are just a dime a dozen, and it's a crapshoot. And hopefully, say a prayer, and you might get lucky. But I don't know how many of these guys in the bullpen do you trust is the question. I don't know.
I don't need to trust a lot of them. I just need a lot of them. I feel like a lot of these teams, you need to have depth that's in AAA that you can call up that's ready. And the Reds had some of that. Like Daniel Duarte was a guy they could ship back and forth, and he was as successful as anyone at times. Right. And so I don't necessarily worry about having the high-end relievers, and I think Alexis Diaz and Lucas Sims are certainly there. Fernando Cruz at the end of the year, outside of a couple of performances, was definitely trending that way. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's all about just that depth. And I don't want to go too far ahead because I want to save some for Kroll's comments that we'll play here in a little bit, because that's really, really interesting. But the last 2 rumors, I don't think we need to have a discussion on them unless you really feel the desire. Jonathan India rumors. Both Bob Nightingale and Jeff Passan reported that Jonathan India is likely to be traded. I feel like we've exhausted that, but that was there. Yeah. And then Bob Nightingale also reported the Reds are expected to non-tender Nick Senzel ahead of Friday's deadline. Some of Nick Kroll's comments, I'll get to in a second, though. The fact that he mentions them specifically, I keep having some pause on this. I'm very confused by this, and maybe it's a whole big nothing burger. And Kroll's just talking about people that are currently on the roster and isn't at all changing anything. But that's your Reds rumors.
All right, so let's do this. We do have some Nick Kroll comments. We're going to play the comment. We'll let it obviously end, share a quick little powwow about just kind of our thoughts on the comments themselves, and then I guess we'll have a fair discussion, maybe a debate. I don't know if a debate's in the cards tonight or not, but we'll find out. You never know. You never know when those things pop up. But here's Nick Kroll's comments on the trade market.
The trade market around the trade deadline this past season, everything that you read and even things that you have said, it was a steep market. How do you foresee the trade market this offseason? Do you have a gauge on that yet?
I think we're still working through that right now. We're still trying to figure out who is and who is willing to move players. I think, there's teams that are in the market that might be looking for a free agent that, they're trying to figure out how to balance that as well. So I think it's still feeling our way through that.
Well, I don't know. This sounds a little bit of like a political answer. Your overall take on the answer that was about the market in general, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much GM speak, but yeah, I mean, like I said, until the market's really set, it's hard to really gauge exactly what they're going towards. One other thing that I did find interesting is this whole Bally thing that just continues to linger over everything. More reports of that. The Guardians and Rangers likely to lose. The Twins said they're planning on cutting payroll. Padres taking out a loan. How much of an impact is this? Do the Reds know what they're getting out of Bally? It seems pretty apparent that other teams do not, and that's a concern. And that might have an interesting impact on kind of the way the market shapes out. So that's just another. It feels like there's just so many different factors that go into all these decisions and how like the first ball is going to kind of get rolling.
The good news on the Bally thing is this really quickly is that I actually think that the Bally is without question in a position right now where they feel good about their deal with the Reds, right? Of all the contracts that Bally signed, the Reds contract is one of the few, if maybe the only one, where I think that they like it, which is good. Which is good. I don't know enough about the whole situation, whether that matters or not, because ultimately at the end of the day, if they're going bankrupt, I'm sure these other teams aren't going to be like, well, wait a minute, you're not able to not pay us, but still have this deal. Like you can't eat your cake and have it too type thing. So I don't know how that'll all iron itself out, but I do think, at least for a moment, when you look at it from a step back, it is nice to know at least our fan base, which I guess that's really the only thing I can compare it to. Our fan base and our TV ratings is good. Or maybe the Reds just made a really bad deal when it came to signing that contract. I don't know, but hopefully, at least we're not getting thrown to the curb real quick, like some of these other franchises have. So, all right. Yeah. The other thing is going to be here with Nick Kroll. He is going to talk about pitching, and this one made me laugh. I got to be honest, Nick. This one made me laugh. I'll tell you why right after he gets done talking.
Nick, when you and your front office are eyeing players that might be available via trade or in free agency, are you eyeing guys that are singular in nature? And by that, I mean a guy that could just play left field or could just play right or maybe just plays first base? Or are you looking for a player that can play multiple positions? I mean, the game seems like it's heading towards the latter.
I think it depends on who that person is and what they can do. If you're looking for a hitter, then maybe they can play other positions. Maybe they play one position. If you're looking for more of a combination player, both offense and defense, maybe it is something where you can move around and complement the guys we have in this club. I think that we've focused on pitching this offseason. It's something just to add to this team. We'd love to be able to do, but for us, it's starting in relief pitching, and I know this. You asked the question what it pertains to in position players, but I think if we can add some pitching that could do both, that could relieve and start, I think we'd have interest in doing either of those.
So, I laugh because he didn't answer the question, and I also think it's hilarious that that essentially he's I mean, what did he answer there, Nick? I mean, what exactly did he say in that whole phrase that made you think, "Oh wow, I can get into the brain of Nick Kroll just a little bit"? Of course, he's looking for guys that can help the team win games. It's simple as that. I don't know how. I mean, is he not allowed just to say that, Nick?
Yeah, I did find it interesting that it kind of unprompted went to the pitching and kind of gave that nugget that the Reds are open to the swingman type. And there was a couple guys that did kind of come to mind with that were on the free agent market. One was Sean Manaea, who was used like that um, by the Giants last year. Nick Martinez, a free agent from the Padres. The interesting thing I find is are the Reds maybe looking at making their free agent signings be that guy that goes back and forth between relieving and starting versus a guy like Brandon Williamson that we thought the Reds might look at doing something like that next year, where they bring in a free agent starting pitcher, and then you either move Williamson to the bullpen, you send him down to AAA. And I'm just using Williamson as an example. Sure. Williamson come to spring training, and if he pitches well, absolutely 100% deserves to be in the opening day rotation. But just, assuming he's the odd man out, it seems like the Reds, at least from those comments, would be more wanting to have their free agent pitcher be the guy that does that versus these young guys.
Possibly. I also don't know if I love this the swing type. To me it feels like if you're not a starter, like you're probably the reason you're not a starter, and I've said this before, is because you can't eat up innings. You're not good enough to be a starter, so they're trying to find another area where you can help the team, so they put you in the bullpen. If you're on the fringe of both of those, and I don't want to say like Luis Sessa was that guy, or I'm not trying to compare every swingman to him, but it's just like I'd rather have, and maybe this is a terrible analogy, but I'd rather have kind of like a steak knife where I know you're really great at one thing, than have some Swiss Army knife where you're just whatever at all of them. Like okay, that's cute that you can kind of do this and you can kind of do that, but you're really not good at either one of them. I would prefer to have the guy that, okay, this guy's a starter and you're going to get some innings out of him. And this guy has been a pretty good reliever. And you know what? To your point, if we find a starter that doesn't work out, maybe then we can try him as a reliever and see if it sticks. But I don't think he really I know you're being nice and saying that he kind of was being open-ended with that. I don't even think he said that. I think this guy just gets on the phone and he's like, literally, he could run probably a campaign all by himself right now. He's ready for 2024. If you ask me, Nick Kroll, he's just scooting right through these questions without answering a single one of them. I would find it funny at some point. Maybe this is why they don't give guys like me microphones. But if he answered that question with me, I'd say, Nick, like, what exactly did you say there? Could you answer the question? Which, kudos to him for not answering it. All right, last thing he talked about was the infield, right? The old infield. We got too many guys. Here's his comments on that.
One of those young players were in the infield. We saw outstanding performances from the likes of Matt McClain and Ellie De La Cruz and Spencer Steer, and at the end of the season, Noelvi Marte. And the list goes on, but there is now a logjam there in the infield as well. Is that something going forward that you solve here in the offseason?
No, I don't think you have to. I think we've got guys that can play with Nick Senzel and Spencer Steer. They've played some outfields. We have a DH spot, so there's a chance that you could see time different places. Last year we had time when people talked about. I've read it, the Jonathan India stuff, but Jonathan India played second base. Matt McClain got hurt. We had a second baseman come back. We had Matt McClain played short. Ellie played third. Marte came up at the end of the year and played really well. So I don't think it's a problem that you have too many good players. It's a good thing to have. I'm really excited to have all of these young players, and then just watching them grow. So, there's a lot of space to get players bats in the lineups. You have injuries. They happen every year. And I think it's just trying to figure out how we can maximize those at bats.
What did you hear?
I just heard Nick Senzel. That's the thing that just stuck out to me. I'm like, he's getting non-tendered, and He specifically goes out of his way to mention it. I know he also in his press conference about Joey Votto kind of like started to mention it and then kind of backed off. So I don't know. Maybe we're completely reading too much into that. One other interesting thing about the one before that, the only thing I would say about the starter reliever swingman type is the Reds did have a lot of dudes up there towards the leaders in innings pitched for relievers like Jabot and Diaz and Sims. Sims, the games that he was available, how many innings he's pitched was really crazy. That might be a way to protect some of that. That's maybe the only thing that I could kind of think on is it might be nice to have someone that could give you a little bit more length just for that. But yeah, the Nick Senzel, it's kind of an interesting little pretzel here that Kroll's kind of used with his words over the last couple weeks.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Those were Nick Kroll's comments. That kind of leads me right into the non-tender decisions and specifically what he just talked about, right? So to be clear, we're in a position now where I'm going to say it. Nick Senzel is not going to be on this team. I don't care if Nick Kroll said his name. That doesn't mean anything to me. I think that's just like, you know what I think that was? I think that was him saying, hey, if we got too many infielders, some of these infielders might have to go play outfield. That's what I heard. And you know who those guys are. I'll tell you who they are if you don't know. Jonathan India is one of them. Okay? Jose Barrero is another one. And you can say whatever you want. And I know I've sat here and screamed and yelled in this microphone and said, Barrero, the only chance he's got to be a major league player is if he's an exceptional shortstop and infielder. And outside of that, that's about it. But then he went down to AAA and he did. maybe it's fool's gold again. I don't know. Maybe they're going to pull maybe it'll be just like peanuts and they're going to run him out there for the field goal. And then Lucy's just going to pull the football on me one more time. Maybe that's what Barrero does one more time to me. But I'm in a position now where I would prefer, hear me out, I would prefer to at least give Barrero a chance than to run Nick Senzel out there one more time.
There's no rush to make a decision on Jose Barrero either, because Jose Barrero is still making the league minimum. So yes, he's out of options, but you can kick it down the can till the end of spring training to make that decision. Why not hold on to him through spring training unless there's someone that's offering you a trade for him where you're getting something back? I don't know why you wouldn't hold on to him. He's a little bit different than Nick Senzel. There is so when you see like these figures of the non-tender players, Nick Senzel is expected to make $3 million. You actually don't have to pay them the full $3 million if you cut them early in spring training or after like 45 days. You only have to pay a small amount of that. I don't know the exact figure to that, but you are, if you decide to keep Nick Senzel, you are committing a substantial amount of money versus Jose Barrero. You're not really. There also is the possibility, Trace, the Reds did this with Kyle Farmer, where they non-tendered Kyle Farmer and then immediately signed him back to a lesser contract. Maybe there's something with that, and maybe that's why Nick Senzel's name has come up. I could see that. I don't know why, if I'm Nick Senzel, I would be looking for another opportunity where I could kind of get a fresh start if I had that option. But, maybe the Reds, maybe there's something there. I don't know.
I'd be shocked, and I would say that I was wrong if that happens, because I think last year at the trade deadline, Nick Senzel was hoping to be traded, and he's openly said that, and he wants a fresh start. He's tired. I'll tell you what, this guy was a first-round pick. He was a top prospect. This guy, at one point, you can say whatever you want, he was a dude, right? At least that's the term that was used when I was playing. That guy's a dude. He was a dude, which means he was the best of the best, and he's still, I don't care what you say, deep down in his mind, Nick, he thinks he still can be that guy. He might think that he is that guy. And the Reds never really, I don't want to say believed in him. That's not the right word to use. But they messed with his approach, say whatever you want, change the swing, wanted him to do some different things from an approach standpoint at the plate, moved him to the outfield, and I'm not saying the Reds messed him up because I think that's unfair to say. I also think it's unfair to say that Nick Senzel got a perfect opportunity too. Right? Both of those things can be true. How much of it, if you put it on a seesaw, how much of it would go one way versus the other, I don't know that. I just think that Nick Senzel, in his mind, would rather get a fresh start somewhere else. And hear me out, even if it's for a really bad team. The guy just wants to play baseball. If you sit on the bench for that long and you are hurt that long, the last thing you want to do is go to a team that has a bunch of depth and you're going to be fighting like hell to get at bats. And you're probably, if we're being honest, you were pissed off at the organization not that long ago. And I don't care who you are in life. We've all been there. If somebody you feel like slights you, forgiveness is a great thing. And I'm all about forgiveness. But let's face it, deep down in your heart of hearts, you still have a little animosity. You're still like, yeah, that guy's still a son of a bitch. But I forgive him, but I still don't really love him. That's the kind of thing that I think Nick Senzel's at. So here's what I'm going to tell you. I wish nothing but the best for Nick Senzel, but if Nick Senzel will not be a Cincinnati Red going into opening day for next year. He's just not, and that's okay. We can all wish him well. And I'm not saying I hope he's not. I'm just telling you, read the tea leaves just a little bit.
It really would not make a dent either way for me. Like, I'm fine with keeping him. Like I said, man, you want to really prove that you're serious about winning and spending. Keep Nick Senzel. He has options. Send him to AAA. But I don't.
Would you be happy about that? Is anyone going to be happy about that? And I know what you're saying. You're saying, hey, you're going to spend money. You can just spend. You're spending money on just the off chance that you might be able to use this guy. Because if you can't use him, whatever, you just spent the money. No big deal. Send him to AAA. I don't know, man. I look at it as every dollar you spend could have been a dollar you spent somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? So don't tell me you couldn't have gone out and signed this other guy because of that extra $3 or $4 million for a specific year when we could have saved that with Nick Senzel. And I know that's not how it works perfectly, but in my mind, that's how I would somewhat operate in a small market. I'd go to the ownership group and I'd say, listen, guys, I got a piggy bank here. I'm going to start saving some money. And when I come back, I ask for all that money back. I want it. I deserve it. I saved it. That's kind of how I would look at it.
The only thing that Nick Senzel has that a free agent wouldn't have, like even a guy that you're picking up, is options. You can't sign a free agent that you can ship back and forth. Nick Senzel, you could actually do that, and that to me is his value. That's the only thing I see that is his real value. But you also, that we've talked about the human side of this as well. Is it even worth that? Because is he really going to be happy with that role? Yeah, probably not. But
Yeah.
do you want to run through?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, the only last thing I was going to say is not to get crazy here. Don't want all the people that I don't know if they love or hate this franchise at times to get mad at me for saying this. The goal here is to win the whole thing, right? Like, we're going to try to win the World Series. With all due respect, the idea of having Nick Senzel sitting around in the balance to save the season if something goes wrong, I'm not signing up for that, all right? I'm a believer. I love the Cincinnati Reds. But if you're telling me that Mr. Nick Senzel is going to come in with his cape and save the day, by God, I got something to sell you.
You want to run through the rest of these guys? I did see some other questions in the chat.
Yeah, please do.
These are the other players that are up for arbitration. The Reds have to decide if they're going to tender them a contract or not. All the other position players, I think there's a 100% chance they offer the contract. Jake Fraley's only 2.2 million is his projection. Tyler Stevenson at 2.9 and Jonathan India at 3.7. Again, this doesn't mean they don't trade them at some point this offseason. This just basically means they keep them around. So I think Nick Senzel's the only decision there. There's a couple decisions pitching wise. Lucas Sims at 2.8 million. Interesting with Sims though. Last year he went to arbitration and lost, which the Reds rarely do. They rarely send they try to work out a deal. So it'll be interesting to see if he goes back to arbitration again. And then TJ Antone at 900,000. have to think the Reds want to ride that out. Derek Law, $1.4 million. Alex Young, $1.7 million. Those are the two I think are probably coin flips, maybe a little less than that, if I'm guessing. But again, you have to know how realistic do they think that they can replace those guys on the open market. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what players of that type of quality, which both those guys were quality in their role last year. I don't know what the you were expecting to have to pay to replace that.
Yeah, a guy like Young, right? I know Mr. Juan was all about Young last show, so I'm going to stick to not slandering him. I just think that what does the open market bear is the only question I would have to have answered for me to start making decisions, and maybe that's something we could find out. I just don't know what that looks like. So yes, I'm open to keeping Alex Young if it's like, hey, to get another reliever of this caliber or even close to this caliber, it's going to cost you, whatever, $3 or $4 million a year. Then at that point, you're like, okay, we're going to stick to Alex. So pretty basic decisions. Do you think there's any of those guys, Sims specifically, do you think there's any risk-reward ratio there on whether or not you would extend a guy like Sims?
It depends on the years for Sims. I mean, Sims is a free agent after next year.
Correct. So I'm saying like would you be willing to do a 3-year deal with a guy like that, or you're just saying like, I don't think it's worth the risk because relievers are who they are, and but he's an arm that I think that could be elite, and he has been elite at times.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have a harder time, getting that on. You'd be signing him now to save yourself next year. Have to go to try to replace that guy because obviously you're giving Sims some security right now that he can't get from anyone else. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in the camp of extending Lucas Sims. He's been when he's healthy, he's been really good. He's got the talent. I always feel like he's one stretch away from going to a really good reliever to an elite dominant reliever. But yeah, I'd be all for it. Now I'm not looking at 5-6 years or anything, but right. Yeah, I mean, if you could maybe two decent cost controlled and pay the guy nice, I'd be all about it.
All right, fair enough. All right, we got some MLB awards. We're going to do that. And then I have one last question. I do want to get some stuff, and if this makes it into the podcast, so be it. But I do want the opinions of those on this show. For whatever reason, when we schedule this, it's got a whole new interface, and there's a new ad system for whatever reason. I've not done my research on figuring that out. So if you're getting a ton of ads, I'm going to put a poll up. Just let us know. We'll dig into it and figure it out. But keeping it moving here into MLB awards. David Bell. What a guy. He got a first place vote, Nick.
Hey, deservedly. I mean, I think Skip Schumacher, just because he was able to get them over the hump, it made sense. But I mean, I don't think anyone outperformed their expectations like the Reds did. So David Bell absolutely deserved I think he should have been a finalist, but whatever. Nonetheless, it's cool to see him get some votes and be on that list. And then the Rookie of the Year, Matt McClain finished 5th, Steer 6th. That Steer's probably the surprise. I think a lot of people thought he should have been, at least maybe top 3. And then Elly De La Cruz, he got a couple votes. He was 8th. So there you go.
Okay. Fair enough. The awards is I don't know. Maybe I'm just a boring old guy here and I'm not fun at all, but it just doesn't do it for me, man. I've never been an awards guy. I mean, maybe the MVP, like if there was a player on the Reds that was MVP caliber, and maybe I could get into that, but I never bought into the Gold Gloves that everybody kept touting about. Barnhart, never got into the idea of I guess the managers of the year. It's like, I don't know. Am I boring? Chat? Am I just a cranky old man for that? I don't know.
Only if Stuart Fairchild was Gold Glove.
Oh, Who's Your Daddy was already on your tail earlier. He made me laugh. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but he did say Who's Your Daddy? 3 years, $80 million. Who says no?
Hey, I mean, I made it till 10:23 without mentioning Fairchild, so I think that's a new show record. I think if there was like I think like if Ellie De La Cruz was in like a neck and neck MVP, I think I'd be pretty excited about that. But Trace, I don't think I've watched a single one of the award shows. So yeah, I'm kind of with you, but I think there would be some that would be interesting. I think MVP would really be one. I don't know. I mean, maybe the problem with the awards is very rarely do you actually have is there any intrigue to it? You pretty much like know who's going to
Right.
win all these awards. Like and Votto in 2017, that was I was locked into that. He finished like if some bum hadn't voted him seventh, he would have won. Him and John Carlos Stanton were like neck and neck. So I think the problem more than anything, and it's not really anything you do about it, is just most of these awards are runaway. At least it feels like that of late. Maybe it'll all flip, and next year there'll be a whole bunch of really interesting races.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll see what happens. As a reminder here, before we get into some other fun goofiness here towards the end of the show, but just to kind of wrap up maybe some of the serious stuff, is this. We will be, like I said, and if you know anybody, please DM me. I'm not kidding when I say that. DM me, DM Nick. If you know any good content creators or people that you follow that does Reds content that you like, my goal, quite frankly, is to try to build a team of the best content producers for the Cincinnati Reds and put them all in one place. And yes, there will be a paywall that goes to that. None of that's going to go to Chatterbox. I'm literally going to divide that between all the people that support the content, and we'll split it up just to kind of make it worth people's time per se. But the goal is to try to make sure that you, as a consumer, get an absurd amount of information and content in one place that's easy to navigate, and we keep a close eye on it, and we try to all be relatively proud of it. And as a part of that, the first 50 people that are able to sign up for that are going to get, like I said, a part of the season ticket group, which is 8 tickets. And also, I did the math today. You're guaranteed 2 playoff tickets, or not 2 playoff tickets, but 2 games in the playoffs. 2 tickets. So you're going to get 2 tickets to 2 playoff games. Pretty good deal. And the tickets, for those that are wondering, they're going to be front row of 527, and they are in the 5th row, which is the last row. And I did that on purpose, of 427, because I've sat there in the 400s, Nick, and there's no one behind you, which is nice. I'll tell you why that's nice, is because you got psychos like me who get nervous every so often, and you want to stand, and you don't feel like you're being kind of rude to the person behind you. So I like that. I like the idea of being able to stand and literally no one being behind you. So anyways, if you got any recommendations, by all means, fire them away now, because we're going to start trying to accumulate as many people as we can that we think are worthwhile to consume content from. That's my public address announcement, I guess.
Love it. Like the stream. Thanks, Mouse Cop. Need some likes on the way out.
53 likes. 53 likes. 53 likes on the way out. Last thing, get your opinion on this, and maybe the chat's opinion. The World Baseball Classic. This past World Baseball Classic was so much more popular than it's ever been, in my opinion. Is there a chance in the world that at some point they replace call it 4 years, because you still have to make it feel like it's super special? I think 4 years is a good number, just right in line with the Olympics. Do you think they would replace the All-Star game with a week and a half, 2 week long, and I don't know how they would ultimately end up doing it, but a 2 week long World Baseball Classic situation? Or is it always going to be spring training, I guess?
I can't see it. If you went that route, to be honest, I'd rather they do it for the actual Olympics and sorry, World Baseball Classic. I think it'd be cool if they were in the actual Olympics. I think that would be a lot better stage, but I can't see you just shutting down pitchers for that long in the middle of a season. You'd almost have to like kind of still play and like take so many from so many teams. Just logistically, I don't see. Maybe you do like a tournament, like maybe you do like it in spring training, and then you get down to your final four, and you only have like 2 games, and maybe something like that. That's the only way I could see it working. I wouldn't be against that. I think I definitely would have a lot more eyeballs if it's in July when there's no other sports going on versus in March when you got just about everything going on.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think that was a pretty cool event, and at the end of it all, I wish they would play it in a time frame in which it would allow the world to have nothing else to kind of be able to watch. But I'm sure that, like I said, there's a lot of smart people trying to figure all that out. And if we're being completely frank, the spring training, kind of the pseudo spring training that is the World Baseball Classic, works out kind of perfectly. But hey, something to kind of mess around with on November 15th when you have not a whole lot left going on. All right, let's play a fun game before we get out of here. I will give somebody a pair of tickets. You're going to have to screenshot this and send it back to me if you get it right, because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to go back through and dig through these comments. But I will give you a pair of tickets to a Reds game for free if you can guess the date that Shohei Ohtani signs, or not even signs. I think it's more fair to say when all of the big news cycles break and they say he's signing with somebody. Got a guess?
So you're giving away tickets to Reds Fest.
Not Reds Fest, no. A Reds game next year. He might sign after Reds Fest. I'll give away tickets to Reds Fest just on once I figure out how to actually get them. I got to figure that out first. Once I figure out how to get them, yes, I'll just give those out to the chat just for fun. I'm talking about a Reds game next year. You got to pick the date. You got to pick the date that he actually gets broken to the world that he's signing with X.
I'm going to say like end of January. I'll say January 27th. I think they're going to drum up, as many bids, but I also don't think they want I don't think they want his signing to be in the middle of spring training, because remember, when he signs, it's going to be a international event. I mean, you're going to have media from all over. You're going to want to make that into like its own thing. Yep. You don't want, I don't think you want other teams in camp already. You want it to be like the big show. You know what? The week between the Super Bowl. There you go. Like, if they're really trying to I don't know what week that is, but
February. That's like in February, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with January 9th. January 9th. It's a random guess. New Balance's stock is going to just fly through the roof. Did you see that? Did you see that they signed him?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
The Kawhi Leonard effect.
Yeah. They signed him.
All right.
Let's see, when was this? January 31st of 2023. So that was last year. I don't know when that deal's up, but
I feel like he has to go to the Dodgers. It feels like they've been trying to set themselves up to get him forever. It feels like they've passed on other free agents. I would, whatever the bet is on where he ends up, I would take the Dodgers.
I'm like kind of at a loss here. This can't be right. It says in January of 2023, Ohtani signed a long-term contract with the sports apparel shoe company New Balance. No free ads. The deal is worth at least $5 million. What? That can't be right. Like $5 million?
I feel like that's like pocket change for him, right?
Dude, that's like New Balance. New Balance is like that's that. There's no way. I mean, there's no way. I don't believe that for a second.
Is that every time he puts on the shoes?
Yeah, I was gonna say $5 million. What? Like $5 million? Like that's what they paid him when he just walked in to sign the deal, and then after that they're gonna pay him more. I don't know. I'm gonna look into that. That's a wild statement. That's the greatest deal ever signed. If it's only $5 million, I'm gonna tell you right now, that is the best deal ever signed. If it's $5 million, got a whole country behind him, man. Got a whole country behind him. Just saying. This show's gone off the rails. All right, everybody. Go ahead, Nick. You got something to say?
No, it's just, hey, I think the people come for Ohtani shoe talk. I mean,
no, I don't think they do. I don't think they do. In fact,
what else are they doing on a Wednesday night? Come on.
I don't know. Mousecop says the Cubs stink. I just wanted to echo what he said. I thought that was a good point. All right.
Yeah.
So we're in the part of the show here where we probably have to leave. We don't like doing this, but we have to. And at the end of the day, Nick's going to remind you once again of the off-season calendar, and we're going to hit you with some promos. We're going to tell everybody that we love you. So if you don't know, now you're going to know. But we have something called Chatterbox Bengals. They are on after every single Bengals home game and away game. That makes it all the games, everybody. So tomorrow, if you don't know, the Cincinnati Bengals play at the Baltimore Ravens. That would be Thursday night football. You have to have Amazon Prime to watch it. And if you do, then you might be able to tune in after that game on YouTube. Chatterbox Bengals will be live. And maybe they'll be celebrating. Maybe they'll be drowning in their misery. I don't know what they'll be, but hopefully you'll be watching. And that is Chatterbox Bengals.
Yeah, I felt for the guys on Sunday. I was like, hey, man, I've been there. We also have Chatterbox Bearcats. They will be live after NKU on Sunday. They played to Charlie Walter and Houdini. Not a UC fan, but I'm a fan of those guys. Those guys do great work. They are growing that show. I think they'll do a great job. So Chatterbox Bearcats, check that out Sunday after NKU.
And we got the chatter with Chuck and Houdini. They're funny, man. I mean, they're funny. If you're looking to kind of, I don't want to call it mindless listening. That's probably not right. That's probably not nice to say. But take it with a grain of salt. If you're just looking to kind of stroll in the car, maybe laugh, get a chuckle out, that is a pretty solid show. That's a pretty solid show. That is the Chatter with Chuck and Houdini.
And then it was right before us tonight, Mac and JT. I know there was a lot of people that watched them earlier and then came over to us. But if you missed it, the only NFL show you need, they go live Wednesday nights at 7:30. They go through every NFL game.
And you got Chatterbox Clicker with Kyle Kasky. He used to be an NFL running backs coach, if you didn't know. In all seriousness, his show's pretty legit, man. I mean, he will break down some film. He'll get you ready to roll. He'll make you understand football better than you knew it before. That show is on Tuesdays at 5:30. I think they've been going back and forth at that time a little bit. Sometimes they're at 5:30, sometimes they're at 9:30. I don't know. We'll keep up with them. But nonetheless, that is Chatterbox Clicker. And then finally, you have Off the Bench with Tom Brennan every single day from 10 a to 12 p is what they say, I think. I think that's what they say. But anyway, that is Off the Bench. And as a reminder, we have a podcast that comes out every single day called Chatterbox Reds. And you're probably aware of it, but I just wanted to remind you in case you weren't. There was one last thing I wanted to tell you guys about, and now I can't remember, which isn't good. That's not good when you're on air. Not good when you just forget stuff. think they give you medicine. They give you medicine for stuff like that, I think. But I don't do that, so here nor there. All right. Yeah, by the way, no, I know what it was. Is the game tomorrow on local news? Is it on local channel? Seriously, chat, I need to know. Let me know, chat. Maybe I thought it was on Amazon Prime because that's just what it is, but maybe since it's a local game, they make it on the local channels. Trying to wait for the chat to confirm that. Mouse Cop said should be. Some say maybe. Everyone's saying nope, it's on Amazon. So that means really it is off Amazon, which, if we're being completely honest, that makes perfect sense. What kind of terrible deal would you make if it was like you're trying to get people to buy into your streaming service, but for the two markets that care the most about it, they get it for free? That seems like a bad deal. But
they did do that for like the NFL Network games got simulcast, right?
Yeah, and I actually think that there was Channel 5. No free ads, but I think they also held some games simulcasted. But I don't know.
Channel 5, big Chatterbox people.
Craig is saying that it is on ABC, and Mouse Cop is saying Craig had it first, and then Craig is saying Mouse Cop had it first. So it's a first off. They're big J journalisming it. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I do find the last thing I'm going to say. I do find it funny when there's Twitter beefs about who had what first and whose content it is. That always makes me laugh, man.
Craig, it is. There it is. I pulled up the guide. It is on
Absurd.
ABC. Craig,
you pulled up the guide? They still make guides? Are you telling me that there's still TV guides?
Yeah, I mean they're gonna run that logo out there as long as they can. I probably gave them their first click of the week.
Crazy. Mark's saying it's Amazon only, man. Nobody knows nothing. All right.
I confirmed it's on Channel 9, folks.
Channel 9, if you live in Cincinnati.
Don't go pay for Amazon.
Yeah.
Sorry, Amazon.
There's probably a damn good chance everyone already has it Amazon, but that's here nor there. All right, Nick. It's that time. Do we have any idea when we might be back?
I was thinking Tuesday next week. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Tuesday next week, everybody. Tuesday next
9:30?
week. 9:30. Tuesday next week, 9:30. I plan on making the announcement at that point, a very important announcement for the season ticket situation. So it's going to be less than $200. That is going to also get you all year long behind the paywall of Chatterbox Reds. And like I said before, you get 8 tickets. And you also get guaranteed playoff tickets if they go to the playoffs, which is, we all know. I mean, I'm not trying to jinx it, but we all know what's going on. And playoffs, I don't know if you know, but that also includes the World Series. So just saying. 50 people. That's it. 50 people. That's all we can do. Don't have unlimited tickets. So 50, less than $200. Maybe a Christmas present, Hanukkah present, birthday present, just a nice present for yourself. However you want to convince yourself of it, convince yourself. All right. I'm going to start playing the outro music. Nick, got any final parting words?
No, hopefully we get some exciting action this week, some rumors. Let's go. Let's ride.
That's right. Let's ride. Let's ride. He is a Bronco man. Let's ride. All right. Love y'all. Go download, rate, review. And even, you know what? Give us a review. Give us a review. Unsubscribe, resubscribe. Just to make yourself feel better. Just unclick it, re-click it. Why? I don't know why. Because it might make you feel better about it. I don't know. Who knows? Leave us a nice little note in the old review section. Sometimes I read those to pump me up for the show. They tell us we do a good job. I like that. But you know what I like more? All of you and the Reds. Go Reds.